Welcome, David. So glad to be able to speak to you again. I know we spoke in the early days of the when the crisis hit, and I'm wondering where things are now as far as your investments and your business goes.
So, definitely, this period has been challenging for a lot of parts of the economies that have a direct relationship with physical movement of people and goods and how they meet. But it has been extremely interesting for the digital economy and for the people that are exploring and implementing new solutions that really allow us to engage across any distance in so many different forms. So, with Beyond Enterprises, where I am a managing advisor,
Right.
that is what we do. We help projects succeed at the frontiers of digital innovation.
I've spoken to a few investors just recently, now that I've started the podcasts again, and they all say it's been fabulous for investments because of what you just said, the explosion in the digital economy. Um, but obviously, there's also huge ramifications, as you mentioned earlier, globally, of suffering and loss of businesses and totally changed the world, really. I don't think it'll ever go back to be the same. What are your perspectives on that, the shortfalls for all the businesses that have had to, I had to let go of my business in the form it was taking because it couldn't do live events in March last year in Silicon Valley. So I just wondered what your perspective is. It is great that the digital economy is booming, but there is also a lot of suffering. There's also people like losing it mentally because of all the restrictions. Do you have any perspectives on that?
So you touched on at least two, three important and different points.
Yeah.
Let's start with the last one.
Okay.
Um, I think it is absolutely crucial that our global conversation around mental health becomes more transparent, more relaxed, less prone to fall into easy prejudiced reflexes. And we understand that just as we have to care about our physical fitness, we
Yes.
have to care about our mental fitness, every one of us. And that those who are um, in a situation where they are more vulnerable, they need our support. First of all, from their friends, their families, but also the kind of professional support that everyone understands. When I say, "Hey, I'm gonna going, I will go to the gym," so for the next couple of hours, I'm not going to respond to calls or meetings because I will be taking care of my body, and the
Yeah.
same must be understood in a very profound manner for our mental health as well, and all over the world. Not only in New
Yeah.
York, where going to the shrink is a universal practice,
Yes.
right? From Woody Allen downwards. Uh,
Yes.
uh, Now, the second thing that you said is how the pandemic exposed the vulnerability in the lives of individuals who are exposed to an extreme degree to
Mm.
their environment, their economic environment, and how many people didn't have the, for example, necessary savings in order to be able to weather the storm over an extended period of time of a year or more.
Yes.
So, definitely, as many of us as possible have to realize that, yep, civilization is great, society is wonderful, but we have to balance our desire and ability of relying on others with a degree of self sufficiency. even something as simple as having savings, which the vast majority of families in the US do not have. Too
Exactly.
many
Yeah.
families have just very, very little on the side. They go from paycheck to paycheck. And when the paycheck is not coming, they fall further and further and further into debt. The third
Yeah.
thing that you mentioned is about mm, uh, the structure of the economy and what can be expected from a given type of society to offer the relief or even specific support for the people who need that. And in the US, it was for me very interesting to see that the checks proudly signed by Trump, the COVID relief checks, actually represented a kind of basic income for millions of people
Yeah.
in the time when they needed it. And so it potentially broke some kind of a dogmatic stance, and it did show to an American society that is by and large pretty um, pretty much leaning towards social Darwinism, that it is the interest of society at large to support the individual when there is a need.
Really good point. Really good point. Yeah. And of course, that basic living wage has been bandied around for a couple of years before this all happened. So that's great the way you brought that together. And on that second point, I've got a little code phrase for myself and everyone that I meet. That this crisis has stimulated a lot of resilience and resourcefulness in me. And I hope and pray that other people also have that experience, because you are really thrown back on resources within yourself, as you said, more self-reliance. And yeah, we are obviously all part of a community, but you also have to have some basic backbone and strength within. Thank you for that. That was fabulous. And of course, our great passion, the crypto domain, has gone through quite a few ups and downs in this crisis. Could you give me your perspectives on that and where you think we're heading?
So I am not able to um, predict what will happen in the world of Bitcoin tomorrow or next week,
Yeah,
whether it
of
will
course.
go up or it will go down. There are a lot of people who are uh, reading the tea leaves and applying certain kinds of uh, analysis, and they share that passion with others. So sometimes their projections become, at least in the short term, self fulfilling prophecy, amplifying the volatility of of Bitcoin and other crypto because of that kind of behavior that aggregates a lot of people around. And of course, cooler heads taking a step back are able to put in place the opposite moves, often being able to gain the upper hand in these zero sum transactions.
Right.
What is, in my opinion, not zero sum is the long term view of what Bitcoin and blockchain is becoming. Because uh, when institutional investors, up to and including heads of central banks, are taking notice and either for the first time commenting upon the role of Bitcoin or reversing their previous critical position to be at least neutral, or to be a position that is not neglecting or it is not a snide remark towards the technology. that really means that over the past 13 years, Bitcoin has achieved a position where it can only further progress. In my opinion, anyone who says at this point that Bitcoin and blockchain technologies are a fad is willfully ignorant,
Yes.
and it is bound to be constantly surprised by uh, reality not matching their expectations. So
Mm.
I'm very excited about how so many initiatives and projects, both in Bitcoin as what is called the layer one protocol, um, as well as on top of Bitcoin and others like Ethereum, is being built. And these are exciting solutions that are starting to be able to scale exactly in proportion with the interest that they are generating across the world.
And how do you feel about the fact that countries, obviously El Salvador has led the lead in that, using Bitcoin as a currency? What's your perspective on this? Because it sounds like other countries are thinking of doing it.
So, um, I don't know if everybody realizes that El Salvador did not give up their own national currency in order to adopt Bitcoin. The decision of giving up their national currency has been taken many, many years ago in favor of the US dollar. The so
Yes.
called dollarization is something that El Salvador shares with other countries that decided, for one reason or another, that it was better not to um, reap the rewards of monetary sovereignty if it came at the cost of having to manage their weak currency in a smaller economy, potentially in a country where the separation of economic and political power is not sufficient, and corruption is rife.
Mm.
So that is the decision that El Salvador took, and now basically they said, "Wow, this new thing, this new technology seems to be very promising, very interesting," and they are certainly making a big leap, a leap of faith in many directions. One, that um, buying and holding Bitcoin as a central reserve currency is going to pay off, and they are not alone in this. The United States, for example, have had the opportunity of holding on to Bitcoin reserves many times, and each time they decided to instead sell the Bitcoin they gained, for example, through criminal proceedings.
Yes.
Um, Famously, Tim Draper, an investor, was the winner of the auctioning off of the Bitcoin previously held at Silk Road, and that purchase blossomed into a multi-billion dollar worth of Bitcoin holding. The
Right.
country of Bulgaria would be able to pay off its national debt if they were to liquidate their Bitcoin holdings.
Wow.
Now, uh, so the one bet that El Salvador is making is that from the point of view of their reserves and their ability to leverage or um, uh, collateralize, or do whatever they want to do around their macroeconomic controls, is going to be improved by their Bitcoin holdings. The other bet that they are making is that in a population where digital natives are a minority, where even some basic skills like reading and writing are not universal,
Yeah.
analphabetism is is present in percentages that is higher than in other countries, well, they believe that they will be able to improve people's abilities by incentivizing them to install and manage their digital wallets on their
Wow.
smartphones. and and this process is not something that happens in one day.
No.
The incentive is real because they are offering, basically, they are sending anyone who installs the local wallet the equivalent of $50 in Bitcoin. And for the poorer residents of El Salvador, receiving a gift of $50 from the government is a big deal.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
there are in parallel a lot of experiments that they are carrying out. Not everyone is on board. There are accusations against the president of him being a budding dictator that is ramming through these decisions without sufficient debate in the country. But from the outside, it is fantastically interesting, and
Yes.
I am rooting for it to succeed.
Yes, me
Um,
too.
and what I expect, is that the volatility over the years during the coming decade of Bitcoin is going to progressively reduce,
Right.
um, and it will become more and more stable. Not in the sense that its value is going to stabilize against the U.S. dollar, for example, but that the ups and downs of its exchange rate are going to be narrower and narrower on a trajectory. Um,
Right.
and of course, there are new technologies that have been developed and deployed over the course of the past few years, like Lightning, where Lightning on top of Bitcoin allows the Bitcoin blockchain to be capable of managing massively more transactions than the ones it could do before.
Yes.
So that is why I'm saying the interest around Bitcoin and blockchain in general is growing in proportion with the technology solutions that are available to service that interest.
So interesting. Thanks for all of that information. The other perspective I wondered if you could talk about is China's situation of banning blockchain Bitcoin in the country. And obviously, we also now know how its own monetary or financial system has been exposed with Evergrande. So, could you talk a little bit about how what you see is happening there and how that's going to affect the digital or the digital economy? Yeah.
So, for a long time, we have looked at China condescendingly, pitting the Chinese behind the Great Firewall, deprived of
Yes.
the digital freedoms that everyone else enjoyed. We
Yes.
didn't realize that actually the protected environment enabled a local ecosystem to strengthen and to blossom and to give birth to giants that now are rivaling any other company from the US or Europe in the digital realm. Alibaba, Tencent, and others, the ecosystem of extremely rich integrated solutions that users of WeChat are enjoying are supporting the kinds of innovations that can be built on top that are not only equal to what we see in the digital world outside of China, but many times are going further. We look at Amazon and their next day delivery, or in New York, for example, for many items they deliver in an hour or so your
Yeah.
order. and that is a pretty common experience in China, where the e-commerce platforms build thousands and tens of thousands of not only regional, not only city, but sub-city located um, distribution centers, and they
Incredible.
coordinate, for example, the promotions that people receive in what they could buy at a bargain price, by pre-populating these distribution centers with the products that will be promoted, of course, so that then they can be delivered um, in literally a few minutes after the order. So this is an example of the traditional digital economy, the centralized digital economy. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
another area where China is ahead of most countries in the world is in the issuance and management and the experiments around central bank digital currencies.
Mm,
Uh, in coordination with Alibaba, they created a wallet that is able to receive and to handle transactions of a cash like digital token. Now, uh, these designs are being studied everywhere, including the US or the Central Bank of Europe, and so on. There are a diminishing number of central banks that are not looking at how to address these challenge they are seeing.
mm.
Um, the parameters with which these new cash-like digital tokens are going to be designed are crucial, because what the driving principle in China is different from the West. The common good, a harmonious society, trumps individual interests and the right to privacy.
Mm.
So the design of the digital currency is such that the anonymous nature of cash is not necessarily present. So we must look at those experiments. We must learn from them, and we must be
Okay.
very alert, very aware of how the equivalent designs are going to be in the West, because we must preserve the anonymity of our financial transactions with these cash-like instruments.
Yes.
Already, they are limited. So when you travel, for example, anytime you could be stopped at a border control, and if you have more than $10,000 or equivalent with you, you have to fill a form, or it will be taken away from you. In many countries, in Europe, for example, if you buy a good, you cannot transact the purchase of that good if it is more than a few thousand euro. So already we have severe limits on how we are allowed to use cash. We must fight to preserve what remains,
Mm.
because the ability it is a First Amendment issue, right?
Yes.
Um, Financial transactions are speech-like,
Mm.
and we must preserve our ability to speak freely through our financial transactions. Uh, the central bank digital currencies are running the risk of taking that freedom away.
I remember when many years ago when they started, a few companies were trying to, you would share your transactions, and I'm a pretty I'm an extrovert, but I'm also very aware when my privacy or security is going to be affected, and I was horrified, and I thought, why would I want to expose my financial transactions to anyone else? Um, or to the general public. I thought that was the most incredible uh, attack or leak of personal information, and that's how close the financial your financial sort of life is to the very, very personal. I would prefer to have more like personal things exposed than my own financial transactions. And I don't do anything untoward. It's just that I just feel they're so personal. So
That's right. That's
yeah,
you are perfectly right.
yeah,
And I always confirm and repeat: privacy is important to the individual,
yeah.
but privacy is even more important to society, which, if it doesn't respect privacy, it is unable to evolve and to adapt to future needs,
Mm,
because anything that deviates from the norm at a given time uh, can only happen if protected by anonymity. But
mm,
after a while, it can become the norm.
yeah.
The latest example in the US, for example, is legalizing marijuana. It
Mm,
used to be a criminal act.
yeah,
In California or New York, people would go to jail.
yeah.
And today it is not. How did that happen? It could happen only through the fact that marijuana was partially tolerated in a society that was not fanatically going against extinguishing any kind of conversation around it. And then it could become something that more and more people felt fine about. And the same with same-sex marriage,
Yeah.
and the same with many other behaviors. So
Mm,
that is why China is uh, balancing a very delicate situation,
mm,
where they understand that their huge country has immense differences. We don't even realize, but the Han majority is just one of the ethnic populations in China. There are more than 100 ethnic minorities that are officially recognized, and these are different people, different languages,
mm.
and China needs to keep them all together. So how can they do that? Can they do that in a relaxed manner? Well, they are certainly self confident, but they don't feel yet that they can relax about it, and so they are trying to balance what can be allowed but what cannot be allowed. And I don't think that we can um, dictate solutions to them. We have to observe them, we have to understand what they are doing, but we cannot pretend that we know better.
Um, I just wanted to add a point there. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist and have been for most of my life since I was young, and I still don't think that China has had any sense of human rights with the Tibetans. Some of the videos I used to see when 40 years ago of what they were doing was horrendous, and now, of course, the Uyghurs have attained a lot of world view about what's happening to them as well, their detainments and stuff. So, yeah, there is definitely a very dark area that the Chinese are definitely trying to cover up, where there are human atrocities happening. And,
And back to Bitcoin,
yeah,
or cryptocurrencies,
yeah.
declaring them illegal is like declaring mathematics illegal.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
it is
Isn't
it
that
is
interesting?
it is a declaration of such a lack of self-confidence. It is a declaration of weakness, and doing it over and over again, like they did over the course of many years,
Yeah,
is dangerous, because uh, there can be people, and there are people in China who are pointing their finger and say that the emperor is naked,
yeah,
because when you are evidently powerless, then a lot of things that you do will be decidedly seen as laughable by a growing number of people.
mm,
So no, I don't think that China is going to be able to stop the spreading of Bitcoin and blockchain
yeah,
within its own territory. And we have seen that their decision hasn't had a negative effect on the exchange rate of Bitcoin towards the US dollar either. So
Mm,
the market overall just shrugged and said, okay,
mm,
well, we move the miners, we move exchanges. Chinese are going to have a harder time to trade in crypto. Okay.
yeah.
And the rest of the world just went happily along. Uh,
Yes, it was like a little bump, really, as far as the financial markets went. It didn't really like crash or anything totally. So it was interesting. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Just love talking to you, David. And I'm probably keeping you too long. But if you've got a few more minutes, would you give me your synopsis on the global shipping crisis? And apparently, what's underneath that is the fact that US have gone crazy with purchasing. It's not just the fact that they can't unload at some of the ports and stuff. What's your opinion about why the crisis would have made people want to buy more stuff? And the US is famous for that, of course. Anyway.
Supply chains are very delicate, and the issues of restocking shelves is not something that is hitting the U.S. Alone. It is
No.
happening in the U.K. too,
Yeah.
um, self-inflicted by their exiting the European Union, and they're sending away truck drivers. Back
Crazy.
home, as
Yeah.
they would be claiming. Now they are trying to lure them back unsuccessfully. So, really, I think this is the aftershock, and we will
Okay.
see additional aftershocks of the pandemic,
Okay.
and we have to really learn important lessons around them.
Yeah.
There are so many ways that we can learn if we keep alert, analytical, open minds.
Yes.
Ransomware attacks. What are they doing? They are
Yes.
strengthening our digital infrastructure. They are
Yes.
exploring vulnerabilities, and every time an organization is impacted, well, their peers hopefully are immediately running to check if they are vulnerable too.
Yes.
Um, when regulators are crying wolf around wonderful innovations like DeFi, which are exposing to sophisticated financial knowledge waves of people who previously were shielded from them, well, regulators don't realize that these people deserve to learn. And
Yes.
then through the power of that acquired knowledge, they can make reasonable decisions
Yes.
that previously they were not allowed to make because only a very small set of individuals could take advantage of the kinds of instruments that now DeFi is giving access to anyone.
Mm,
So
mm,
there are so many things that as long as people who are curious like you and your listeners are alert to these phenomena, are uh, leading towards a more resilient, better educated, more empowered and emancipated world. And that is what is supporting Bitcoin, the understanding that technology is a key to the world of the future. And
mm.
it is the belief that that world is possible that is supporting Bitcoin against naysayers everywhere.
So inspiring and such a fantastic, wise perspective. I really appreciate talking to you again, David. And it's made my day, and I'm sure it's going to make my listeners' day. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get you on again sometime soon.
Anytime. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Stay safe and well. Thanks again.